Thank you very much indeed for inviting me this evening, and I'm delighted to be here with so many people from Slough. Now, we've been asked to talk a little bit about social crimes, and I was thinking, well, what exactly is a social crime? How is that distinct from other forms of crime? And clearly it includes crimes that we can all recognise, crimes that our colleagues in the police will be tackling, but it also includes some crimes which go beyond police matters. And it can be simply about behaviours and attitudes, about discrimination, about antisocial actions, about unchallenged inequalities within our society, and about things which build separation in our community. And behaviours and attitudes can be simply rudeness and lack of consideration, but they can be lack of respect for others' personal space, for their property, for their customs, for their values. And they can be lack of support for the vulnerable in our community. And prejudice and discrimination can be seen at work, in employment, in access to facilities and services, in access to influence and power. And antisocial action can be things that we all experience day after day after day. It may simply be inconsiderate noise or litter, vandalism, graffiti, maybe the way we drive or park, and some of the things that the council has to deal with. And these things breed tensions and resentments in our society. And those unchallenged inequalities of opportunity and unchallenged inequalities of outcome may appear in our access to work, our access to levels of pay, our educational attainment, in gaps in health, and the differences that people experience as victims of crime. And all of that may lead to resentment and feelings of community separation and conflict. So what should we expect? What should we hope for? Well, if we look at what the Race Equalities Council says, it's about a strong sense of community identity, a strong sense of vision. It's about welcoming diversity in all its different ways, that all differences should be appreciated and respected. And that's diversity in all its dimensions, whether that's race, gender, faith, ability, and so on. It should be about ensuring that everyone has similar opportunities in life. And it should be about building strong and positive relationships between individuals and between communities. So I was thinking two things. What is the Council's role and what is my role, not as Chief Executive of the Council, but as a private individual? So what should all our roles be? Well, the Council's role is to provide leadership to the whole community. It should be creating opportunities to talk, to listen, to build understanding and to build relationships within society. It should be creating opportunities for different parts of the community to work together and opportunities for people to give back to their community. And the Council should be tackling those inequalities it can influence, whether those are in education or employment. And it should be working with others to tackle other inequalities, whether that's as victims of crime or inequalities in health. And the Council should be tackling those environmental problems which create such resentment. It should be encouraging others not to leave their litter, to vandalise property. It should be challenging the ways that people think about their environment. And from time to time, it should be taking some pretty tough enforcement action to stop people behaving like that. And we should, through our own practice, ensure equality, so that we ensure that the Council has equal opportunities in its own employment, and that our access to services is as even-handed as possible, and that the impacts of our services are as even-handed as possible. And ultimately, the Council's leadership should seek to provide that common vision and sense of identity. And I'm sure many of our partners and many people here will wish to add their perspectives on that. And I would hope that they would all wish to work with us. So, as individuals within our society, what is our role? Now, clearly I have a role as Chief Executive of the Council, making sure that the Council fulfils its responsibilities. But as a private individual, I should be trying, in my own attitudes and behaviour, to welcome all sorts of different people and communities, to listen, to understand, to learn more, to respect everyone's values, everyone's ways of doing things, and show respect for others in every way I can, and be sensitive to different practice within our community. I too should be respecting my environment and not leaving my litter and not being inconsiderate in the way I treat others. And I should be committing to support those less able than me. And I too should be putting something back into society, not just through the job I do, but what I do in my private life.
Firstly, in a society where we're governed by the rule of law, any crime has implications for society, even so-called victimless crimes such as prostitution or drug abuse, because even those offences will often as not irreparably harm the wrongdoer. And defining social crime is therefore not easy, because every crime has negative knock-on effects and every crime diminishes us as a society. We have, however, perhaps seen recently a rise in our perceptions, particularly of antisocial behaviour, of low-level thuggery, of yobbery. Perhaps this is fuelled by media coverage. Perhaps this is by our own growing understanding of antisocial behaviour issues, particularly in the light of our increased powers, such as the advent of antisocial behaviour orders, ASBOs, which has passed into the speech, hasn't it? Passed into the vernacular, antisocial behavioural contracts, alcohol banning orders and so on. It's kind of the latest vogue crime, you might describe it as, and every age has its own moral panic. If you take the long view and I transport you back to the mods and rockers of the 50s and 60s, the skinheads of the 70s and 80s, and we come through to the ASBO generation and hoodies of today, you can see that each age has its own particular problems. And as an aside, I do have to say that I feel that society, as it becomes more secular, is leaching its values. We're seeing an erosion in our corporate moral life as generation succeeds generation, in which the moral teachings of our religions are progressively loosened and the focus comes more on the self-regarding individual and less on the contribution of the collective of society. So anyway, whatever the reality and the causes, thank you, society undoubtedly is now too violent, and too many people, from the Home Secretary down, feel too afraid and intimidated by social crimes and the environment in which we live. And that brings me on to something which, as I say, has been greatly preoccupying me over the last week or so. You will remember the recent conviction of 3 young men in the case of the mindless murder of Gary Newlove. A gang of yobs kicked him to death outside his home in Warrington after he challenged their behaviour. At the end of his trial, his widow, of the trial of these young men, his widow, Helen, made a very moving statement. She described Gary as a caring, loving, funny, and most of all, a family man. She described in a heart-aching way the impact that the loss of Gary had had on her and her daughters. And she then went on to say a number of things which I'm going to quote to you. She said this: "Parents should take responsibility for their children. Gary and I have brought up 3 girls together to respect other people and to be home, not walking the streets, causing damage and intimidating other people by drinking and abusive language." She said what these people need to understand is it could be their partners or parents that it happens to. Until this society stops thinking about number one, we should all try and pull together to stop these youth gangs going on rampages. She said until this government puts into place an effective deterrent, the youth of today know too well that they